Something that is unseen by one generation of scholars can turn out to be very important for the next generation of scholars, and that's kind of how discoveries get made. My name is Marina Rustow, and I'm a professor of Near Eastern Studies and History at Princeton University. Historical questions are one of the greatest kind of solvents we have for the various kinds of myth-making that human beings tend to do about themselves. I set out a few years ago to write a book on Jews in the Islamic State in the Middle Ages, and I realized that I couldn't really move forward with the work I was doing on it until I understood a lot more about how the Fatimid state itself actually worked. How did people interact with it? How did it govern? How did it extract taxes? How did it redistribute resources? And these were answers that Geniza documents could actually help with. A Geniza is a storage chamber for worn manuscripts in Hebrew characters. Genizas existed because of various beliefs about the sanctity of Hebrew script itself. So Jews would deposit their worn manuscripts into Genizot in order to give them, in a sense, to give them a dignified burial. There are very, very few comparable documents from the Middle East from that period. There's very, very little documentary information. And when I say documentary information, I mean letters that people wrote to each other, legal documents, shopping lists, kind of one-off texts that people wrote that they had absolutely no intention of preserving for posterity. What's interesting about Geniza documents is that they tell us how they managed to negotiate their legal position and their political position directly with the state, generally via the process of petition and response. Most scholarship had really only looked at the Hebrew script materials from the Geniza, but it turns out that there's a sizable subcategory of documents in Arabic script. Many of those documents are records of how Jews interacted with state institutions. I had had very little training in deciphering Arabic script documents, and it was taking me so long to read them, but I still wanted to interpret them somehow, and I started to use kind of every part of the document, not just what the words say. Sometimes I'd have to wait 3 weeks because I was consulting with another scholar, and we'd have to establish our reading, and it would just take a long time. And I'd start to think about, what is the layout of this document? How is it actually arranged on the page? And what might that mean? And that turned out to be a kind of key for me. I started looking at documents not just as vehicles for texts, but also as objects in their own right, and trying to interpret them as objects. One of the things that I'm hoping the fellowship will allow me to do is to spend a little bit more time creating collaborative structures for people to do this kind of work together. Documents can be deciphered a lot more quickly, efficiently, and accurately if you have many sets of eyes on them. There are enough of us in the field now that if we work together, I think we can make progress much more quickly. So I'm hoping this will give me a little bit of freedom to think about how to do that.